My math shows more than 50 people in the room, so we can go ahead and get this party started. It is, of course, June 7th. I was going to crack a 6-7 joke in the title, and I thought, well, we're too cool for that, aren't we? But a lot of the usual suspects are here. I appreciate that very much. It is a beautiful day in southeastern Michigan. I show 74 degrees outside, and it's been nice and sunny for the last 2-3 weeks. We did get a bunch of rain one day. I think it was it Thursday night where we got about an inch of rain, which for us is a good amount to get in a short period of time. So got the inch of rain, but it soaked into the ground. Next morning, got up and I mowed the lawn. It wasn't even wet. The grass was dry. So there you go. Chris Topes checking in from Blue Ash, Ohio. M. Kolb, of course, from Milwaukee. David Zarodnansky. Steve's here. Louis Browning. And now Steve Lehto. Steve G, 9674. Good day all from San Diego, where it's probably still morning time, right? Miko Angel, Arts 4014, believe in yourself. And all kinds of friendly faces. Russellmania. I like creative names. Russellmania 7. Keg 4998. Hey, from the mountains of Florida. How big are those mountains in Florida? They can't be that big, can they? Hey now, completely lawless. Dave O. Do. All right, something decent to watch. Fatty Butterpants, thanks for the books, note, and the ride over the bridge on your second channel. Thank you very much. I did post a video I shot driving across the Mackinac Bridge. Not in anything special, just in my Explorer, but I know that I'd never done that, I don't think. Maybe I have. It's something else. I don't know. But I put up a video of me driving across the Mackinac Bridge about a week ago. I went up north. Did a short run all the way up there and back, short in terms of time. Spent very little time up there dropping off books at bookstores. So there you go. Ralph Riley is checking from Hornbrook, California. James Chmelik sits at his desk, puts his head down. I'm guessing that's what that means, unless you're typing with your forehead or something. David Peterson was binge watching Dark Shadows. That's one of those things they turned into a movie recently. It just didn't quite translate for me. B. Brewer, between Cincinnati and Dayton here, you covered a story from my hometown last year. Trenton, Ohio man buys street. They took it by eminent domain for way less than he was originally offered, by the way. It's too bad. Kind of wish you'd gotten the lotto ticket with that, you know? David Zarodnansky says they got rain and more, thunder, lightning, etc. here in New Jersey. Richie Rich, 3434. Hey, Steve. Mark Miller, Mackinac. Depends. You cross the Mackinac Bridge, it's AC. It starts in Mackinac City, AW. Everything else is AC. Miko Angel, your cars all seem so cozy. I have now shot videos in all my cars, by the way. I just realized that. Peter Mandix, I just got the first mow of the season done, and it's a dry 88 Lone Tree. That's some slow growing grass you got there, my friend. I've had sections of my lawn that I've mowed like 7 or 8 times so far, and I'm not staying on top of it. I mean, it gets long. I go out there and I feel bad. Prodigal Stranger says you read someplace the highest point in Florida is 345 feet above sea level and can be summited without the aid of a Sherpa. That's assuming you got your cardiovascular in shape. John Laurie, greetings from Lorain, Ohio. Good morning from New Zealand, Lacey, 8218. Okay. Hang on a second. Little maintenance here. Hello from Barrie, Ontario. Cooler day. Good for cutting the grass, says Alex Nandy. Checking from Indiana. Blue Jean Girl. Hi from Indiana. We loved visiting Mackinac. Beautiful bridge. Yeah, and some people don't like the bridge. And the weird thing is there's no pedestrian access to it most of the year. There's the bridge walk every Labor Day. I've done that many times. Walking across the bridge is quite an interesting experience. But driving across it, you get there, you see it, and you're on the other side, seemingly. But it's a quite nice bridge. There is a video on YouTube somebody put up recently about this bridge has a problem no one can solve, and it's the Mackinac Bridge, and they're talking about ice falling off the cables, which has been happening ever since they built it, pretty much. It's a question of how often it happens where it causes trouble. And they have had a couple well publicized events. And there were some bridge closures this year, but usually they're not that long, so it's not that big of a deal. Carl's Corner says, seeing how you dropped off books that trip is a business expense. That trip was nothing but business. That's why I went up there. I drove up there, dropped off books, and drove straight home. Oh, boy. Mark Miller did a road trip from Denver to Detroit to Toronto years ago, including a trip to Mackinac. I assume road trip. There you go. I was gonna say, 'cause that's not when you fly, because then you have to like rent from Detroit and drive up and back or something. But yeah, no, that's a great way to do it. The lower the lower peninsula's upper half, right as you approach the bridge, is, I hate to say this, it's not terribly exciting for scenery, but the bridge is beautiful. And then when of course you cross, you can go across. If you cross at Sault Ste. Marie into Canada, a lot of nice drives there. So Jason Brindamar, I did not click on that video on purpose. I only watched it because somebody said, "Hey, Steve, they just released a video on the Mackinac Bridge." And it's not bad as far as the history of the bridge goes. And the guy got a lot of the facts, pretty good, including stuff that I don't commonly hear people talking about. But then to say it's got this problem no one can solve, ice. Ice has been around for a long time. The only solution for ice would be, I guess, make nature stop messing with water. Oh, Stephanie House says that happens here on the Penobscot Narrows Bridge. Closures are rare. Yeah, and you got to remember the Mackinac Bridge is way north. It's north of the 45th parallel. So it's going to get some freezing situations. Chris Dope did the rail from Windsor to Toronto. I know people who've taken the train in Canada. I never have. I've done the train as an adult in Michigan. I took the train from Detroit to Chicago a couple times. That was fun. Again, I took the train from Detroit to Chicago a couple times. That was fun. But there you go. Mr. R112175, Cannonball Run is coming. Okay. Cag, have you looked into the bricks and mini figs case? A little bit, but I know a lot of other people have covered it. And also, I was waiting for the story to completely resolve or unfold, and they keep it keeps it keeps unfolding. Prodigal stranger, couldn't they heat the bridge? Well, it's 5 miles long. The bridge is, and it's not the road that's freezing. It's the suspension cables have ice forming on them, and then when the bridge moves as it does, the ice breaks off and falls. So Stephanie Howe is on the 45th parallel over here. Yeah, in Michigan, as you drive up I-75, there's a sign that goes, "Here's the 45th parallel." And you'll often see people stopping to take their picture by the side of the road at a sign that says 45th parallel. I wouldn't advise it, but people do it all the time. Michael Curry says it's raining in Vermont. Raining in Vermont. Completely lost. What's your viewpoint on bring a trailer transactions? Do you trust them? I've never done a bring a trailer, but I know people who buy and sell there all the time. And I think it's like anything else. I mean, go back to the early days, before the internet, when you had, classified ads or the Trading Times or Wheeler Dealer or whatever you had in your area. The only difference there is you go meet someone face to face and then transact business. And here you're transacting business with somebody you can't meet face to face. So you got to take that into account, right? So I mean, I remember the early days of eBay, which was like the wild, wild west. And somebody would claim they had something for sale, and you'd pay them, and they go, "Oh, I mailed it to you," and they didn't. And then, of course, they institute all kinds of guarantees and all kinds of stuff. And they realized they had to deal with the problem that you can't buy something from someone in another state unless there's recourse of some sort. But I know people who've just gone on to bring a trailer, found a vehicle they like, bought it, sent somebody out there with a truck to pick it up, and they got it. It was great, But I have to imagine there's problems there like anything else. So as always, do watch out for yourself. Chris Bedasis says like, comment, share, and subscribe. Oddly did not capitalize like, but commented Capitalize, comment, share, subscribe. Oh, Mr. Hi, Beta. I'm in Florida and floating in my pool. I hope I don't drop my phone. I was watching Dirty Rotten Scoundrels yesterday, which is a great movie with Steve Martin and Michael Caine. And that's a remake, of course, but it's a wonderful movie. And at one point in the movie, his butler walks up to him, that's Michael Caine, and says, "Sir, you have a phone call." And he hands him a telewalkie, portable phone. And he takes the call and he's in the pool. And my first thought was, I hope he doesn't drop that because Lord knows what would happen to that thing if you dropped it. Dan Boyd Hemmings. Hemmings. I remember Hemmings. You flip through there, you often see some real exotic cars. That was a national marketplace in print back when most of the marketplaces were relatively regional. MHOH is downtown Minneapolis, heats the sidewalks. There's other places like that. The campus of Lake State University in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, does heat their sidewalks between buildings, which comes in very handy in the wintertime up in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Steve G says, my friend sold something on Bring a Trailer. The last 10 minutes was exciting. Watching the bids, I have to assume. Dan Boyd, I missed the Trading Post and all of its common misspellings like a 12-volt posi or the Hertz shifter, etc. Oh, boy. Yeah, Prodigal Stranger, cork on the fork with the eye patch. Excuse me, Ruprecht, may I take your trident? Oh, Nick Bradley points out that he may have been speaking like a hippie, as in, like, man, subscribe. Maine Marine says raining in Vermont. Hemmings is from Vermont, and it's raining in Maine too. So is all interconnected. This is the interconnectedness of all things. Magus 1213. Do you practice law in the UP? Well, I do. I'm licensed in the entire state of Michigan. I do handle lemon law cases in the UP, and I have, but that's the only kind of law I practice. So I cannot help you with other legal issues in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And it's so far from where I live, where my office is, that it doesn't make sense. In fact, I don't think in my entire career I've ever handled anything for someone in the Upper Peninsula that was not a lemon law claim. I'm looking up to indicate I'm thinking. I'm looking at my own brain, kind of. And no, I can't think I ever have. 116-3562 says, this is for the Gatorade Fund. Please stay hydrated. Thank you very much, my friend. We have the Gatorade ready and raring to go in the Yeti cooler, in the Yeti thermos. Swamp Rat, I joined eBay in 2006. I've only been ripped off once. They don't take PayPal. Don't buy from them. That's exactly right. And that's, of course, one of the greatest ways that you can, have recourse. I'm not sure if I told anybody this, but this watch that I wear here, which you've seen me wearing occasionally, because I wear it every day, is a Breitling that I bought off of eBay. And eBay has a service paid for by the seller that if you're buying a watch and they claim it's like Breitling or Rolex or somebody important, the watch gets shipped to a service that will inspect it first. Then, if it's not as advertised, they will send it back to the seller and go, this deal's off. And if it passes, they send it to the buyer with a write-up saying, yes, this watch is as described, et cetera, et cetera. And they actually send it to you with a wrapping thing on it to where you can still look at it. And if you think it's wrong, you can reject it somehow. But I mean, I got mine and it didn't delay the process much, just a day or two later. And I got the thing and it says, yeah, this is exactly as described. There you go. So Jerry Dodge says that Gatorade's got what plants crave, electrolytes and stuff. Neil Akaria, am I able to ask a very specific question regarding evidence and a current popular case? Well, it depends. I might not be familiar with the case because I don't follow every case out there. But if you can frame the question properly, I'll try to answer it. I do know a little bit about evidence. I taught trial practice for a few years in law school, And one of the things that you talk about extensively is evidence in a courtroom. Completely lawless. What percentage of your cases go to trial now that all the manufacturers know you? A very small number. In real life, only like 99% of cases don't go to trial. Like 1% go to trial, but that's of all cases out there. And so if you know what you're doing and you're filing good cases and defendants know you, it's even less likely. So yeah, most of them settle. Oh, Arts 4014 Yard Wildlife Update. In the last week, I have seen rabbits galore. I saw 4 out there yesterday at one time. Deer, too many to count, but a baby deer for the first time. I saw a baby deer yesterday, probably a day or two old. Did not get a picture because it was walking by in such a way with its mother that I couldn't get a picture. Also, I've got raccoons. I've got a skunk. First time I've seen a skunk on my property with my own eyes. Raccoons and possums. I've got a possum that wanders by early in the morning, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, wanders by, and I always see him. So, Echo Tracks is the French Open men's tennis final is in the fifth set, and a good background for multitasking. It's been a while since I watched tennis. By the way, the New York Mets are playing this afternoon around 4:30. They were playing a West Coast swing where they're on really late at night. But AJ Ewing, who is the stepson of a very good friend of mine, is on the Mets. He's batting around 270, but he's got 7 stolen bases, and he's not been up for the full season. So right now he's number 2 on the team, I believe, in stolen bases. So he's doing quite well. Yeah, Neo Akaria, I've not been following the uh, bricks and minifigs case as closely as I would to speak on it. I'm sorry about that. Chris Badesa now says in caps, like, comment, share, and subscribe with no commas. I'm just kidding. I wonder how Leno's Law is faring these days, says Vilefly. Last time I checked, it had passed one house and was headed to the other, although California calls their house the assembly. I don't know if it needs assembly or what, but I once referred to the state Congress in law school and had a professor snap on me. He goes, "It's an assembly." And I said, "Who's talking about California?" Oh, boy. Silent Hangus says, I live on the 45th parallel, halfway between the equator and the North Pole. MHOH says, skunks are docile because they can be. Dan Boyd points out that skunks are also something that's called polecats. Polecats. Yes. I think that's one of them old school names from down in the holler. Bob Kerflugen, I've got a plague of grackles that hang out in my backyard. Yeah, grackles are one of those birds. There's just a lot of them. There's just a lot of them. Jerry Dodge, California is weird. Literally everything causes cancer there, but nowhere else. Well, I think what happened was um, they came up with the idea that we should label stuff that's potentially dangerous. And if you label it and you're wrong, it doesn't matter. But if you don't label it and you're wrong, it does matter. So it became easier just for everyone to label everything they made as dangerous because it got to the point where people just ignore the warnings. It's just And so if something could be sold in California, they put the warning on it, and then it's sold in all 50 states. So you're going through any store in America and you pick it up and it goes, prop, whatever it was, warning in California, this product may cause cancer. Darkwood says it could be a rave of grackles, a rave of grackles. Stephanie House says she's at 45 and 9, 45 degrees and 9. Is it 9 minutes? Is that how that works? Lewis Browning, skunks are omnivorous animals. The highly varied diet That includes insects, small animals, fruits, and plants, depending on the season and food availability. I was watching the skunk, and he was walking along like he didn't care. And I see a lot of animals in my yard who are constantly eating and looking up because I've also got hawks. I don't count them as being in my yard because they're often flying over or perching someplace. Occasionally, I see them perching. But I've got hawks. I've also seen osprey over my property, and I've also had bald eagles. I know it's bald eagles not far from here. So if you're a rabbit in my yard, there's a good chance that your days are numbered. But this skunk was wandering along, kind of like I don't even care because I don't even think they'll eat me. So a 182 QKFTW tree rats are squirrels and vice versa. Richie Rich, that'd be Prop 65. Prop 65. That's the one thing that's maddening about California is they'll routinely have like 100 propositions on the ballot. It might be a little bit too easy to get them on the ballot. Just a thought. Robert Lee was sitting on his porch a few days ago and heard a loud crunching, and it was a raccoon eating out of his cat's dish. I waved him off with my tablet. He turned around and came back. He was not a cat. Hey, you want something? You can't blame him. That cat food is just tempting, and you leave it right there. Come on. Jerry Dodge, I turned 40 on Wednesday, and I'm the youngest of five boys, making my mom feel old. Sorry about that, my friend, but you know something? Time marches on, as do we all. It is apparently damp and humid in Ames, Iowa, says Mindbend. Sometimes I listen to myself says the North Star is the same degree in the air as the latitude where you live. So if you're standing on the North Pole, looking straight up, interesting. Fast Eddie 336. I could have dug past this and gotten a blue one, but then it would have thrown the rotation off. I can't do that. Arts 4014's got a flock of cedar waxwings, very beautiful birds. Mexican Spec, good morning, Steve. Believe in yourself says it's possible to bribe raccoons with shiny objects. That is true. For some odd reason, raccoons love shiny objects. They also love to play with things with their hands. And technically, it's not a thumb. They don't have an opposable thumb, but their hands do look like almost human hands, and they are very good at manipulating things with their hands. And they can undo things, and it's amazing what they can do. They're very intelligent, very cool animals. Lewis Browning says turkeys eat ticks, and a single adult turkey can consume 200 or more ticks per day. Um, Mages 1213, Coyote versus Acne is finally coming out in August. Are we still having a watch party? Well, here's the problem. We've been working on that, and we can't get a commitment as to when the movie will be available for us to show it in our own theater. And we've been looking at really cool theaters we want to show it at, but they're like, well, if you do it as a first run, it costs a fortune. And I don't want to watch it at a mainstream cinema where it's like, oh, let's all go watch the movie, but then we can't sit down and talk about it. I want to do an event, so it might be a little while. We're still working on it, but stay tuned, as I like to say. Mindman says you could also have worn a shirt that matched the cup, but that's doing it backwards. If you're trying to match the it would defeat the purpose. The rotations are there for a reason. Apparently, 1163562 is quoting Jean-Luc Picard, who said, "Time is a companion that goes with us on the journey to remind us to cherish every moment because it will never come again." It sounds great in his voice too, wouldn't it? Swamp Rat has a mockingbird that hates one of his cats for no reason. Well, mockingbirds, like all other birds, hate cats because cats, if they get too close, don't appear to like the birds either. I've had some red-winged blackbirds on my property, not recently, but I have. And if you go near them, they'll dive bomb you. But they're just trying to drive you away from wherever they're nesting. Chris Bedesa says red-tailed hawks are very good at catching rabbits. Oh yeah, oh yeah, and it's that, and also coyotes that keep my rabbit population down. A bomb says, "What did I miss about the coyote versus Acme? Wasn't listening closely. Sorry, nothing yet. Just stay tuned." Jerry Dodge, make it so. Oh boy. John Laurie says a McDonald's menu sounds good when read by Sir Patrick Stewart. Oh, it's like, yeah, him and James Earl Jones. I've said before, go to YouTube and look up the hype reel that the Michigan Wolverines put together a couple years ago. And James Earl Jones narrates it. And I'm telling you, if somebody else had narrated it, it still would have sounded cool. But that just elevates it like to a whole nother level. Bob blah blah says our cats keep bringing rabbits home. Yeah, it's one thing for cats to do whatever they do out there, but when they bring it home, and I remember when I was a little kid, we had a cat, and a couple of times he snuck into the house, with a bird in his mouth. Dude, half the time the bird's not dead. You got a bird flapping around your house, and it's half injured, and the cat's pissed off, and oh boy. Yeah, Chris Bedesa points out the cats kill birds and other wildlife because it's in their nature. Yeah, it's not like they turned bad. It's it's what they do for a living. Oh. T. Schross says, "Hi, Steve. Today's my birthday, and I just got back from a drive in my 58 Chevy Impala. 58 Chevy Impala. It's kind of an unusual year for the Impala. My father had an Impala. I think it was a 65. The early 60s Impalas are much more well known, but of course, a 58 Chevy is pretty cool too. Jerry Dodge, one of my cats as a kid, came home with a frog in her mouth, hind legs still sticking out. Do you think it jumped up and she caught it midair? I mean, that'd be oh boy. Yeah, don't forget, Prodigal Stranger points out that it was James Earl Jones said, "This is CNN," and I can't imitate it, but yeah, this is CNN at the top of the hour. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Lewis Browning's pointing out drive-in movie theaters in Michigan. I'm not sure why. There's about 8 or 9 of them, I think. There's also one near Traverse City called the Cherry Bowl. There's one down towards where I used to live in Eau Claire, Michigan. Um, so, but obviously doing it at a drive-in would make no sense to show that movie as a group project. Favorite Butter points out that El Diablo is Spanish for fighting chicken. At least according to Talladega Nights. Oh boy. Tyler Pasquale, hello from a sunny 85 degrees South Carolina. A little late again this week, but here nonetheless. Got my copy of Dodge and Plymouth just a few days ago. Thank you very much for letting me know. I sent out, I think, about 30 of those a week or so back. Sam as I am says, I have one of those voices where everyone says you should be on radio, and I once was. Where were you on the radio? Please tell me. I've probably told the story before, but when I was in high school, a neighbor said to me, "Have you ever considered going into radio?" I said, "Why?" And he goes, "I like your voice. You have a nice voice." And I had thought about it, but never dawned on nobody likes the sound of their own voice, except for James Earl Jones. I'm sure even he realized he had a good voice. But it was one of the things that made me think about it a little more seriously. So I worked in radio on and off for a few years there. Darkwood, did you hear about the collectible car parade debacle in Tulsa? No, I did not. Swamp Rat, I don't know the voice for radio or the face for TV. Yeah, John Laurie reminds us that James Earl Jones stuttered when he was younger. And he also came from a small town in Michigan that no longer exists. Where his family lived when he was born does not exist anymore. There's nothing there. Nothing there. Tina, Steve should write a book about technology. I'd have to learn about it first, wouldn't I? Fast Eddie, Barry White has a very distinguished and great voice. Yeah, he's got a voice that almost sounds fake. It's so deep. It's like, is that real? Sam as I Am was on Houston, 50,000 watt KPFT FM, and frequently offered other jobs on commercial stations. But I actually love music and didn't want to play the same stuff over and over again. Absolutely. When I worked in radio, I worked at a bunch of oldies stations, which isn't that bad until they tell you got to play Going to the Chapel or, you know, Brown Eyed Girl another 1,000 times. But I did work at a CHR station, CK105, for a brief period of time that played a lot of really cool music, and the mix was really good. I liked that place a lot. They also let me goof around a little more than a lot of places. May just 12, 13, one of some great tourist destinations in Michigan for motoring enthusiasts, meaning you don't mind the drive. The Gilmore Museum near Kalamazoo is a great drive out in the country that ends up at a really cool museum, one of the largest museums in the nation, with automobiles and stuff there. And there's a lot of stuff in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Copper Harbor, absolutely. Way, way up at the top there, worth the drive. That's where I went last week and I was talking about it. Chris Bedesa, how does a town no longer exist? The people move out, the buildings fall down, nature takes over. Dan Boyd had said that Phil Hartman had the voice. Well, Phil Hartman had many voices. That was what's so great about him. He was like 50 different people on The Simpsons. Lewis Browning says radio probably prepped you for opening and closing arguments. I don't know about that, although it did help me with my stage fright. Tina, Steve's technology book, chapter 1, The Abacus. I'm going to go back before the abacus, that Chisholm Bop, where you're supposed to do the counting with your fingers. Remember that? They used to have ads on TV for that. I might be saying it wrong. Sam as I Am says at that time, KPFT had an 11,000 record library of LPs, believe it or not. Did you notice I inverted that sentence to make it more understandable? Not that you wrote it wrong. It's just that I thought that it made more sense to somebody hearing it to put the believe it or not at the end. But 11,000 records, that's a that's a lot. Thomas Urus one, tell us about your fort as a kid. Every kid that lived close to the woods had one. We didn't have forts, but I knew where all the good climbing trees were. Easy caught at 768, 105.5 up by Flint. Yeah, CK 105. 105.5 FM. They changed formats in 1988. I worked there in 1989. They'd been rock and roll before that. Sometimes I listen to myself like the Bridge Drive video I put up on Friday. Arts 4014, is there a recording of Morgan Freeman and James Earl Jones in conversation? Just talking about anything. Tina, did you ever listen to John Clay Wolf's radio show, Give Me the Vin? I know who he is. He hangs out with the guys from Fast and Loud. And I've watched a couple of his videos. I'm not sure about actually listening to his radio show. I'm not even sure where the radio show is because I'm in the Midwest. It's probably not available up here. Jay Smith, are as many cases settled at the diner across the street as are in Chambers, or is that just a small town thing? Well, it's not necessarily the diner. It's over the phone, or sometimes at informal meetings, like during a deposition. I've had a lot of cases where somebody took somebody's deposition and afterwards said, "Hey, we should probably settle this case." So Easy to see audit says I lived in Flint for 32 years. So you probably know all about CQ105 and probably also know about WTRX, WFDF, WIOG, which is out of Saginaw, but you could hear it in Flint, and WDZZ, as well as a few others. MH08 says Beebe, South Dakota, was a town that no longer exists. I think there may still be a signpost for the railroad on a telephone pole. I know of some towns up north that don't have signs anymore. I'm trying to remember if there's a sign for Alston. I don't think there is. And Alston's where my grandmother used to live. And her house is gone, but somebody bought the property and put up another house on it. And there's like 2 or 3 houses and a couple buildings and even a church left over from the old days. But there ain't much else there. Blah, blah, blah. I don't understand how I could be an hour late for the 11 o'clock show. Well, the show tends to start at 1 o'clock my time, but hey. Oh, Drag Pack Merc says Tulsa had a parade. The organizers made it a one single file entry into the staging area for 5,000 registered cars. Turned the surrounding streets into a parking lot for hours. Greatest thing about that is some of those cars, you don't want them idling for that long, just sitting there. You know, my Cobra, I can take it out on a nice day like today. As long as it's moving, the temperature gauge is so far to the left. I'm worried the car's not running, but I can hear it running. But I mean, I'm looking at this temperature gauge going, is that gauge broken? And then it moves a tiny little bit. If I'm stuck in traffic, like at the Woodward Dream Cruise, that temperature gauge climbs. Now, I've got an auxiliary fan I can kick on, which I do from time to time. So it's Trenton. I got quoted in a court filing. How should I frame it? Saying a judge was improper for not listening to emotions. You know something? I have a few of those things I keep saying I'm going to frame. And you know that's the tricky part is you hope there's some kind of headline or a case caption or something you can put at top, and then make it, and you may have to print it and blow it up or something to highlight the section that's you. I had to see it. You and Riordan, what would be your least favorite type of law to specialize in if you couldn't? So in other words, I can't do lemon law, but someone gets to pick the worst thing ever for me. Divorce, family law. I don't want to handle cases where both sides hate each other and don't care about settling or resolving their issues. Oh, John Lawyer, why are we not talking about truck repos? Well, every video I post is about truck repos, obviously, but the live streams we occasionally get off topic. Thank you for reminding me to get back on topic. The light at the end says the worst crimes in Ohio, in Illinois. In Illinois, rated from the top. Number 1, murder. Number 2, grand theft. Number 3, gardening. Bob Kerflugen, Harrison wants to know if that's a real $100 bill. Yes. I've got some fake ones. Somebody sent me a whole stack of the fake ones. They're underneath the hang on. They're underneath that radio tube right there. See that radio tube? Underneath it is a stack of fake $100 bills, those movie prop money bills. I talked to the lady at the bank I was talking to the other day. I said, "You get those ever?" She goes, "We don't, but our customers bring them in and go, 'Hey, I got this. What do I do with it?'" It's like, throw it away." You got ripped off. Oh. Jupe Turwin says, "I saw your bridge road trip and I'm curious about the speed limits." You know what's funny is I thought I did a pretty good job of cropping around the speedometer because I knew I'd get comments. And I had several people go, "Oh, you're speeding, you're speeding." I'm like, I don't think you can see a speedometer. And as noted, the trucks in the right lane, some of them are doing like 15 miles an hour. So I'm not blowing by them at 100. They're driving slow. They're driving slow. Oh, it's Trenton says any encounters with Ned Jarrett in your automotive history, RIP. Yeah, Ned passed away. You know something? I meant to do a video about him, and I had so much other stuff to do. Ned Jarrett's one of the old school racers. He raced in NASCAR back when it was still just a hobby for a lot of guys. He was in the same group of people that Bobby Isaac, David Pearson, and Richard Petty. Those guys all knew each other. They all knew each other. And I interviewed Ned Jarrett for a book I wrote a long time ago, and a lot of that material made it into my Dodge Daytona Plymouth Superbird book, I think. And nicest guy. And then later he was doing announcing on the television. And I got contacted by ESPN a few years ago now and asked if I wanted to talk about Bobby Isaac. And I said, absolutely. And they said, well, any chance you can make it down to Hickory Motor Speedway? We're doing a bunch of interviews there. And I said, sure, I'd love to. So I went down to Hickory Motor Speedway with Wolfie. Wolfie and I drove down there, which is another story in and of itself. And we got down there and they told me what time to be there. And so I get ready and I realize it's close to time. So I start walking around to go look for how I can get in. And out walks Ned Jarrett. They had told me who else they were interviewing. And I go, Mr. Jarrett. And he looks at me just like I'm some other idiot who wandered in off the street. And I said, I'm a big fan. However, I interviewed you about Bobby Isaac. I called you on the phone. Somebody gave me your number. And when I called and said, I want to talk about Bobby Isaac, you said, let's talk. And I go, we talked for over an hour. He goes, yes, I remember you. And I said, can I get a picture? And I actually got a selfie with him, talked for a few more minutes. And he said, okay, you gotta go. And I said, okay. And he goes, are you talking to them too? And I said, yes, I'm talking about Bobby. And he goes, great. Nicest guy. And what's funny is I interviewed him, David Pearson, Richard Petty. I interviewed all these guys, and those guys have been interviewed a trillion times each. They've been interviewed so many times. And I'm just an absolute nobody at that time. And I called his house. Somebody gave me his home phone number. Same with David Pearson. And when I said, I'm a writer and I'm calling from Michigan and I'd like to interview about Bobby Isaac, they're like, oh, what do you want to know? Same with David Pearson. David Pearson actually said, I think it was David Pearson, who said to me after about an hour, he goes, Steve, I'm really sorry, but my granddaughter's playing basketball tonight. I got to go. Can I call you back? He called me back. Oh, boy. Skull and Crossbones, good day from Queensland, Australia. Joe Palmer says Ned Jarrett was racing NASCAR when it meant running from the revenuers. I'm pretty sure it was Ned Jarrett who told me that he and Bobby Isaac entered a race at a state fair someplace on a dirt track that was also used for horse racing. And he said they were in these cars that are worth like, $500. Just, it may have been a claimer, may have been a claiming race. Or if you won, you had to be willing to sell your car to somebody. Anyway, he said they ran side by side, sideways, lap after lap after lap, just like this far apart, never bumping. And he goes, I don't remember who won the race. He goes, but the crowd loved it. And he goes, both of us had that dirt style track racing down. We'd call it drifting today, but just side by side like this around the track, just endlessly. Echo Tracks points out that at 93, Ned's life spanned the entire history of NASCAR. His call of his son winning the Daytona 500 is tear-inducing. Yeah, that's amazing. And I interviewed Richard Petty. This was just a couple of years ago, and he said, Steve, I've been to every single NASCAR race ever. And I said, weren't you too young to be racing in Charlotte in the first year? And he goes, oh, no, but I was there. My dad was racing in it. Yours truly, Todd. Hey, Steve, I'm taking a 10-day road trip. Where are you going, my friend? Tin Door Tailgater like the Mac Bridge run. Thank you. I appreciate that. I am McNathan. I'm old enough to remember taking the ferry across as they built the Mackinac Bridge. Now, I'm I'm too young for that. But I know my dad took the ferry a few times, and that was an experience if you were there at the wrong time of the season. Jerry Dodge, are you a habitual leg shaker? Well, my leg is shaking right now, but it's not from being nervous. Although, I mean, they'll refer to nervous energy, but I tap my foot. It's just a way of burning off energy. Fatty Butter Pants says Ned was one of the old school guys that drove while wearing penny loafers or dress shoes. Bobby Isaac set world records wearing Converse tennis shoes, as we called them back in the old days. SC says we had a dirt track like that here near Milwaukee, the Hales Corner Speedway. Well, you got to remember that the earliest days of racing were often on horse tracks. So it was dirt. That's where the first dirt tracks came from. And then a lot of places like Hickory Motor Speedway, I'm not sure if there's anything there before they raced there, but they built some stands and built a track, and it's a small little, very small track. If you go from Talladega to Hickory, and there were guys, by the way, who did that back in the 60s and 70s. Mexican Spec points out that he gets the cool cars that blah 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 asked about by living in Mexico, and they're all around him. Sue's now says off topic, but what's the website for the chairs, recliners that you do commercials for? Flexi Spot, and so I'm sitting in a Flexi Spot chair here, and I've got a Flexi Spot chair back there. So I like them and I use them. And I had somebody once ask me about it. Steve, you really should try those products before you. I do. I do. You should see the stuff I turned down. Tim Nossum didn't expect the book to arrive so quickly to Colorado, ordered on Sunday. It arrived on Wednesday. I send them out media mail and they're tracked with tracking numbers, and they tend to get there pretty quickly, but once in a while they don't. But I'm glad you got it. Thank you for letting me know. Waffles the Wonderfish says for years that people pushed me to stop the leg shaking, and I managed. But then after some knee pains, my therapist told me to start again. Is that true? Oh, people think things that are unusual are wrong or different in a bad way. And I tell myself not to tap my foot or do things like that if it'll distract people. But if it's under the table right now, the only way I'll see it is if I put my hand on my leg. But if I don't have my hand on my leg, you can't see it, right? Unless the monitor shakes. So who cares? Dan Boyd likes to think about Curtis Turner ripping a 58 Ford around the paperclip turn on the sands of old Daytona. The original races in Daytona were partly on the beach and partly on the road there back in the old days. Curtis Turner is an old school driver. Old school driver. He had a temper. And one time he got banned by NASCAR briefly. And when he got banned by NASCAR is when Bobby Isaac started racing in NASCAR. And Bobby Isaac had a temper that made Curtis Turner's look like nothing. And the first time they raced against each other, Bobby and Curtis bumped, and it took Curtis out of the race. And afterwards, Curtis came running up to Bobby Isaac, and he's like, "Did you wreck me on purpose?" Bobby Isaac's like, "Are you kidding me? I don't even know who you are." Curtis Turner's one of the best known racers in NASCAR, and Bobby was telling the truth. He did, and he's like, "I don't know who you are." Oh boy. Sometimes I listen to myself watch a video of the JD Leach cargo ship going into port in Duluth. Yeah, there's a bunch of Duluth webcams that are pointed at the river mouth that comes into Duluth. Superior, Wisconsin's on one side, and Duluth is on the other. There's a couple bridges there, and they got cameras everywhere, and you can watch those big ships come in. And some of those ships are so huge that it's a spectacle to see them. And quite often, the biggest ones, like the Paul Tregurtha, when that rolls into harbor, uh, it draws crowds. It draws crowds. And if you haven't seen one in real life up close, they are mind bending when you do. Mark Miller says, "Can the USPS be sued for poor performance? My local mail's taking 14 days with local mail." Well, no, I don't think so. USPS is a federal agency, and I understand they're separate and all that stuff, but there is federal law enabling what they do, and I suspect it's ruled by that. So I highly doubt it. But I understand you're probably joking, but still, I like to throw that out there. Yeah, Drag Pack Merc says a crash broke Ned's back in 65. Doctor said he should take 6 months off. Ned wasn't having it. He found someone to truss him up, was back in the car the next week, and he won the 65 championship. If you want to see accidents, look at the crash of Richard Petty, I believe in 1970, where he's coming down the straightaway, and it's this is on live television, by the way, and he's in a road runner because the track wasn't long enough to race the wing, but 1970, and he loses control of the car for some reason, and the car goes sideways and it hits the retaining wall that separates the pits from the main drag there, and the car tumbles, and you can see in slow motion he's unconscious, and he's flopping around in there like a rag doll. And luckily, he didn't put his arm out the window; he would have ripped it off. And when it came to a stop, people go running out there. And I actually saw an interview, and I forgot which one it was, but one of the commenters shut his mic off and goes, "Oh my God, we just killed Richard Petty on live television." Like they thought he was dead. And so they go over there and they unbuckle him, they pull him out, and they throw him on an ambulance, and they're racing him to the hospital. And Richard Petty goes, "I think I hurt my elbow." I believe he said, "I think I hurt my danged elbow." I'm surprised he didn't say, "Let's flip the car back over. I want to get back in there." Blah, blah, blah. Do you think there'll ever be an electric car 500 with swappable batteries? Maybe. I don't know. Oh, boy. Chris Harder points out there's a video that he'd like me to do on Sony Music losing a high profile case pro se with somebody. I have not heard about that case. I'll have to check it out. David Zaradnansky says that Richard Petty crash you reference was the beginning of the mandating of window nets in the cars. Who'd have thought those would become a thing? Don't forget, there's a time when they raced with side windows. Cars were more aerodynamic. And then every time a car got in an accident, you had twice as much glass to clean up. So they took the windows out right around the same time. But window netting, yeah, it's a good idea to help people keep their limbs in the car in case it goes rolling down the straightaway. Brian Selt says, "Why do they call it motor vehicle laws when most all engines, not motors?" Because motor is one of those things. It depends on its usage and the time frame. Boat motors are engines, but people call them boat motors, and so on. So, yeah, Arts 4014 points out an electric car 500. If there were any crashes with fires, it'd take too long to put them out. Oh. MD Hofsty says the Sioux Locks has a live stream camera mounted on the Tower of History. And it's a very tall tower, but it's a little ways back from the locks in the city of Sault Ste. Marie in the US, because there's also Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. And that tower is very, very tall. It must have an unobstructed view. I wouldn't be surprised if there's other cameras you can see, though, at the Sioux Locks. GPN says people don't ride around on engine cycles; they ride motorcycles. Oh boy. Arts 4014 says, by the way, the ships at the Duluth Inlet are bigger than the Titanic. I have a question that somebody can Google for me and look up faster than I can. Would the Titanic have fit through the Soo locks? I don't know how long the Titanic was or how wide, because the iron ore boats are built to a certain dimension. They're basically the size of the locks plus a little bit on each edge. Daniel Kester agrees that engines can be called motors as well. Lewis Browning says no. Okay, but which way doesn't fit? Or are we saying both always? Ryan Lins is back in the 70s. I handed out trophies to the guys. Flat track racing in Milan, Michigan. Down towards here. Down towards here, actually. There you go. Okay, now I've got two different dimensions for the Titanic. MD Hofsey says the Poe lock is 800 feet long. Is the Poe the largest, though? And now people are saying the Titanic would have fit. Oh, boy. And A-Bomb says it would not fit because of its depth. Okay. Yeah, David Zerdanansky says, technically speaking, engineering says a motor is something that moves something, whereas an engine is any complex machine. Like you'll hear a computer called a number engine, right? Therefore, an engine need not be a motor, but a motor is in fact an engine. It's a Venn diagram. Oh. So Rum says the Titanic was 882 feet long, 92 feet wide, and it would clear both the length and width with room to spare. Okay, how about the depth of the lock? I don't know what that is. Oh. Chris Bodasis is the width and length of the smallest lock. No, I'm talking about the biggest lock. We're not going to jam it through the smallest lock. I said, would it fit hypothetically? Oh, I'll look it up later because now I see so many answers. Okay, Mindbend. The Titanic dimensions are length 882, beam, which is the width 92, height, keel to top of the funnel is irrelevant, and then draft below water 34 feet. Okay. Arts 4014 says the Titanic would fit with a light or no load. So apparently it's going to be real close on the bottom. Oh. And then MD Hofsey says the lock depth is 32 feet and the draft of the Titanic is 34 feet. So it would scrape through. Prodigal Stranger, it's a moot point. The Titanic is at the bottom of the ocean. Well, I'm sorry, it would not it would not be able to get there from the ocean, and it's in the bottom. But that wasn't the point. I said hypothetically, could it fit through? I'm sorry I asked. Let's move on. Let's move on. Oh boy. Well, I'm gonna take a break here and pour myself some Gatorade. It's been an hour. I think I'm entitled. I bet it's still cold too. It's amazing technology in these Yeti products. Not a sponsor. 182 says the Titanic also claimed 5 more lives a few years back when that sub imploded. And don't forget that the Titanic actually did at one point in time stop and offload people successfully because it went from England, I believe, to France and then was headed to New York. And so several people got off, but a bunch more got on, I think. Yeah, Mexican specs, you can't really blame those deaths from the submarine on the Titanic because it's not the Titanic's fault. Which I I see where you're going. I think I agree. Oh, John Nowak is again alive and well. I'm assuming in Corpus Christi. Oh, he did not say well. He just said I'm alive. Fatima Butterpan says Noah's Ark is in Lake Michigan. I thought it was on the side of Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat. Some of that information you pick up as a kid, you'll never shake loose from your skull. Never. Yeah, May just points out we're not making a big deal about 6-7, which, by the way, in the description to this video, I said, don't say it, but I'll allow it here because it took a while. Bob Blah Blah says you'd love to have taken a dirigible ride across the Atlantic, just not in the Hindenburg. But don't forget that the Hindenburg and others had made successful crossings. A lot of Americans always just assumed that was the first crossing because it's the first one that caught their attention. Oh. Yeah, Mexican specs is when was 6-7 actually a thing? Don't have young kids around. Yeah, what's funny is I've never actually heard anybody say it except ironically. In my case, it's June 7th, so I thought, well, 6-7. But Arts 4014 points out the U.S. dirigibles crashed without hydrogen. Yeah, and that was one of the big debates because at the time of the Hindenburg, you could fly a dirigible with hydrogen or helium, and helium, of course, was safer. But the Germans didn't have access to enough of it that they could use, and hydrogen is relatively easy to come up with. So Jerry Dodge, I see the number 6-7 all the time more often than I see the number 2-3. Yeah, but what about 4-2? The number 42. Oh, Aviva Rabinowitz reminds that in Israel and most of Europe today is actually 7-6. And they also make their ones like this, and a 7 has a line through it, right? Oh, boy. Yeah, Vilefly points out that dirigibles are tough in storms. Think about the liability even when docked. I remember being someplace where a storm swept in suddenly, and I saw the Goodyear blimp just go sailing by, just it was going by sideways. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope someone's on board that, and I hope it's not in the news tonight. And it wasn't. Somehow they recovered it. But I think somebody was trying to dock it or get it inside and it got loose. But it was the Goodyear blimp and it was relatively low and it was going sideways. And you always wonder about that. Yeah, Jupe Turwin, no one really knows the meaning of 6-7 is. It was one of those stupid things that caught on, and the explanations are just as stupid as anything else. Al Miller, good morning from Bainbridge Island, Washington. Bainbridge Island, Washington. SC says, as far as I'm aware, we are still slowly depleting the helium repository we built and filled during World War II. Faster when we're producing it. Yeah, I mean we can produce it. The question is it still being used for like party balloons and stuff, and gender reveal parties? Maybe we should limit it to actually serious things. Waffles the Wonderfish says, yeah, lighter than air craft have several issues with weather. Fatima Butter Pants says, I put a line through my Z's. I still do too. I picked it up, I think, in algebra, like seventh grade or something. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of theories about the Hindenburg, everything from sabotage to static electricity to lightning to all kinds of stuff. The amazing part is that anybody survived. That's the amazing part. It really is. How many people survived? Brian Selt, any recent metal detecting stories? I've only had my detector out once this year, and I didn't find much. I found a wheat back penny, and that was it. I found a bunch of common change. We don't count that. Keepers are the non-common coins. So I will keep that wheat penny amongst all the other pennies I found. Rum 123 serious helium usage, like inhaling and speaking. MH08 says Earth is losing mass, mostly helium. Once it's gone, it's gone. Can't it be extracted from the atmosphere through some kind of reductive process, like distillation, or does it go up there so fast that you can't? $182QKFTW. Helium is a large commodity for rocket launches. Is it used for cooling? I don't know much about that. Larry T says helium cannot be produced by a commercially viable method. So they have to actually mine it and extract it that way. And Vilefly says if we ever get around to doing fusion, we can actually make our own helium. Sure, why not? Carl's Corner read an article that said the moon has a lot of helium. That explains why it's up there. Without that helium, it'd probably crash. Jupe Turwin says that it's too expensive to extract the way I described. Helium 4 on the moon. Firefly. Dougie Doo likes the drive over the bridge commentary and video. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm always worried about putting those videos up. I think people are going to think they're stupid, or I'll get too many comments about, hey, you broke the law, right? Well, why are you breaking the law? And I'm not going to mention which video it was, but there was a video in which I was out in the middle of nowhere in one of my vehicles, and I rolled a stop sign, not bad, came to a stop almost completely, and then, hey, there was a stop sign there. Why'd you do that? Why? And had some guy going nuts. I'm sorry. Should I stop and like set up a house and create a family and live there for a while or what? But anyway. Dan Boyd says helium is why space aliens always have high pitched voices when they say, bring me to your leader. Lockwatcher says we actually know who did it. Actor William Atherton sabotaged the Hindenburg in 1975. Richie Rich, that's called a California stop. You know, I wonder when people comment on videos like that, are they horrible to drive with? In other words, when you're driving with somebody like that, and like you take one hand off the wheel, there, hey, two hands. I've had people say that too. Now I know some of that might be joking, but sometimes it comes across like there's just nitpicking. And it's like if I have to sit here and rethink everything I do, it takes the fun out of it for me. But I just happen to have that camera. I shot a bunch of really cool videos that I will put up eventually. And I was sitting on this. I'm like, oh, I'll just use this camera, shoot a quick video. I'm crossing the bridge. Why not? So Richard liked that video as well. Thank you. Self Do says George C. Scott almost saved the Hindenburg, and Bancroft was on board. Jerry Dodge, what do you think of the Michigan left? I'm surprised. I started hearing people say that when the internet became a thing, and I'm like, doesn't everybody have those? So you're coming up to a big intersection, two big roads cross each other, and if they have lights there and left turns, people back up for miles. And I can think of a couple in my life that happened at. So Michigan left is where they say no left turn at the intersection. You make a right turn, hit the first turnaround, and now you're on the road you wanted to be on. And you might say, but Steve, a right then a left is better than a left. Yeah, because there's not this gigantic backup to make a left turn. Because many of those turns only had a single lane for the left turn and not enough people to make through the light. And so that's a Michigan left turn. And I don't know why more places don't do that. A-Bomb says, in my experience, people who complain the most about other people's driving mistakes are the worst drivers themselves. I would see why that would be the case. Oh. Now Curmudgeon says the bridge video should be nominated for a documentary Oscar. No, it should be nominated for Best Picture. Documentary? Why pigeonhole it? It's literally shot with the camera and the microphone on the camera. And I can't remember if there's any cuts in it. I don't think there are. I think it's literally just I occasionally just change the angle because it's a Insta 360. I don't think it has any edits in it in that respect. So yeah. Best cinematography also. Doug Jones, speaking about blowing through stop signs, cyclists are the worst. You mean bicyclists? I've seen groups of bicyclists where like 100 of them go through a major intersection and just blow through. They're like, screw it, we're all here. Grande Tacos is what's great about the bridge tolls. We didn't have to pay the toll. I don't know if you caught it or not. I forgot if you could actually read it. But when I got to the MacPass booth, the arm just went up because I've got a transponder on my truck, and I had $17 in the account, and it says $4 paid, and it goes low balance 13. My balance was down to $13. So they let me cross one more time on the way home, but I got to put more money there. Daniel Kester liked the video also. Fatty McButterpants likes the live streams on Sundays because one, I always learn something, and two, I always laugh. I can't promise you'll always learn something. Oh boy. Self-Do says, in my opinion, Michigan should sue U.S. Department of Transportation to have the Lansing to Flint Highway designated as Interstate 98, being in proper IH numbering convention, as opposed to 69, which is what it is now, I believe. It's not a bad road either, but yeah, I don't. A lot of the stuff, yeah. MD Hofsty says that Jordan Mowbray posted a video about an hour ago that the Sanford Lake is finally full. First time since the dam failed, Sanford Dam, in 2020. Amazing. Yeah, it's been filling up. And the Sanford Dam is one of two dams that failed during some really bad, heavy rainstorm weather in 2020. It wiped out the town of Sanford, literally knocked buildings off their foundations. It wrecked the Fierro Museum that was in Sanford for some reason. I've canoed on that river from that dam all the way down to Saginaw, Bay City. I forgot where I made it to. and it's a beautiful area. But then what happened is when the dam failed, I mean, literally the whole dam collapsed. So it took them a while to fix it, and they're fighting over it the whole time as to who's going to pay to fix it. Jerry Dodge says you said "damn," but I didn't. I didn't say the word with a silent N. Oh boy. Doug Jones says we have bike lanes, but the laws haven't been changed to say if there's a bike lane, the cyclist must use them. There's so much confusion over bike lanes, especially in cities, because you can have it can be city lanes, and so on and so forth. Lockwatch, a friend of mine designed and implemented a full digital dashboard for the Fiero. I remember I've had a couple friends who had Fieros. I remember having rides in them. Very, very small car. For the taller fellows, it was cozy, shall we say. Sam as I am, this is when I was a little kid, I saw the flooding in Danbury, Connecticut, and it impressed me for the rest of my life to never live where it can flood, which went 300 feet above the lake a mile away. Flooding and water is one of the most ominous nature events because you can watch floodwaters rising and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're sitting there looking at it going, here we are, all the technology we have, and there's not a darn thing we can do about that right there. Nothing, nothing. And water goes where it wants to go. It just goes there. Dan Boyd says that listening to the new WKRP in Cincinnati is they're using AI voices, which says things like, I'm Gary Sandy. You might know me as Andy Travis. It sounds nothing like Andy. That's too bad. And here's the thing. To revive that station, you do not have to have it sound like WKRP sounded like on the TV show. Because number one, it wasn't about what was on the air. It was about what was happening in the station, in the studio, in the office. So what you do is you put a station on the air and have the disc jockeys have the same sensibility as the disc jockeys of WKRP. That wouldn't be that hard to do, not in a major market like Cincinnati. And so they should call it WKRP and use as many references they can get away with and play the music WKRP played. But quite frankly, the playlist on the TV station, TV show didn't make a whole lot of sense anyways. So it's more important to have, like I said, just the mindset as the same. Arts 4014, by the time they canceled the Fiero, it was a great car. That happens a lot. The Fiero had some early problems that they solved, but the reputation just followed it. Waffles the Wonderfish stuff floods quick too, especially when a dam fails. Lock Watcher, did you see that the Bears are leaving Chicago? I heard that was a thing. I wasn't sure it was finalized yet. But one of the craziest things in our society is that a huge sports entity can approach a city and go, "We want to build a new stadium. Help us out. We want a bunch of land. We want tax breaks. We want this. We want that." And if the city goes, "Well, we're not inclined to do all that for you. We don't do that for other businesses," they go, "Oh, oh, well, we'll go look someplace else." And next thing you know, the Chicago Bears are talking to cities in Indiana, going, "Well, if we moved our franchise to your city, what can you give us? Tax breaks? Help us buy some land? Will you condemn a whole bunch of buildings for us and take them by eminent domain? Oh, let's talk. And you hear these stories about these professional sports teams getting cities to bid against each other and stuff. And the question is, does it really benefit the city or the people of the city that much to have a sports team suddenly? And I don't know. I don't know. Brian Ellis, there was a classic car convention at a hotel in the south of Ireland one time where they all parked in an underground car park. The nearby river flooded and you could hear the cars clinking together. Oh, it hurts just to think about it. Mark Miller, When the Levee Breaks. Probably my favorite song by Zeppelin. Blah, blah, blah. Extortion is the newest business tactic. Travis Williamson. I'm so sorry. I always miss the son. Travis Williamson lost over 25 girls, 27 total, at a summer camp less than 5 miles from our ranch. People ignored the flash floods and storm warnings because they rarely came to be. And that's the oddity of it, that they actually could have had a warning but chose to ignore it, if that's what happened. And you hear about, like I live in Michigan. We have tornado warnings. And the thing is, they don't happen that often, but we hear enough about tornadoes to where if you hear that tornado warning go off in its day, they're not exercising it, especially if your phone goes off too. You start watching the sky and planning a beeline to the basement. Wolf Peach, do you believe federal court judges should have term limits instead of lifetime commitment? Oh, there's pluses and minuses on both sides of that, and it's so hard to say. They certainly should have an age limit, or at the very least, there needs to be some mechanism in place because we've heard a couple stories about judges who just refuse to get off the bench, and they really should have. But on the other hand, there needs to be something to protect them because that's how you keep from getting hometowned, which I've talked about recently in videos. And you go to some small town and it's a local court and you're from out of town, they can spot you a mile away and you're probably going to lose. It happens. It happens. Arts 4014's got a hummingbird at the window feeder. Lock Watcher, what happens if we get a tornado on the same day as the siren test? Yeah, that's, I think, one of the reasons that they tend to have tornado warning tests right around noon or 1 o'clock, because they figure that that's probably the least likely time. Oh, Jerry Dodge here in Portage, Michigan. We still have tornado damage from a couple of years ago. I was just in Three Rivers the other day where a tornado came through a few months ago. That was a horrifying thing. I remember seeing footage. People shot footage of it as a tornado is going through that neighborhood by that lake. And yeah. Yeah, MH08, our tornado tests are at 11 a.m. Pretty unusual to have one at 11 a.m. Self-do says the House can and has impeached federal judges and other officials, and the Senate tried to remove them. Often, though, they just resign and move on. And so here's the thing. I mean, obviously, impeachment power is there, but I don't know that it should take that much to get an incompetent judge off the bench. And but on the other hand, like I said, I do think the long appointments are necessary, specifically to keep them from political pressure. Johnny Z. Fradley says my dog howls during a tornado siren test. Yeah, your dog is just singing along. Oh boy. MHOA says damn tornado warning siren is right behind my house. That's rough. Don't forget that they actually built some warning system sirens with Hemi engines, Chrysler Hemis, a Hemi powered siren. It doesn't go anyplace, but man, you can hear it from miles away. Blah, blah, blah. Ohio tests exactly at noon, first Wednesday every month. Noon, Wednesday, first. Sub GR says the Palace of Auburn Hills is about the only arena I know of that was built by the team owner, was used by the Pistons and the Vipers. And the Vipers, of course, was a hockey team owned by the same guy who owned the Pistons. And of course, I believe that building's gone now, which is kind of strange because it didn't seem that old to me. But then again, the Pontiac Silverdome is gone also. And I remember when they built that. MHOS says, I think the Ball Arena in Denver was built by the owners of the Avs and Nuggies. The Prodigal Stranger says, I saw a TV show where they used a Corvette engine to power a blender. I saw where Richard Rawlings of Fast and Loud claims he's going to take the Ferrari engine out of his six-wheel Ferrari and use it to make margaritas. But I haven't seen yet how they're going to set that up. Self Deuce's Mopar 354 Hemi from 1956 was used in those sirens because Chrysler had a surplus of them when they went to the 392 for 57 and 58. And I'm trying to remember if I've ever told the story here or not. I think I have. My brother Ken, who was an engineer for a long time in the automotive industry, uh, actually had a Hemi, and he bought it from a kid in high school. And he brought it home, just the engine, brought it home, dismantled it, cleaned it up, put it back together again, fixed what was wrong with it, built an engine stand for it, went to a junkyard and found an intake for it and a carburetor. And on an engine stand with nothing, no exhaust manifolds, no exhausts, just open valves, fired it up. And I suspect people one county over were calling the police going, what is that sound? And I actually have a photograph of it somewhere that somebody took. I did not take the picture. I think either my mom or my dad did. And a picture of Ken standing next to this Hemi. Big grin on his face, probably completely deaf. And I mean, just, oh, I remember watching, going, that was insane. It was insane. John Michael Karma just got here. Where have I been? Where's my head at today? I don't know. Yeah, Doug Jones says he could have gotten at the marshmallows and cooked things with those open those open exhaust ports. And by the way, my brother was, I think, getting a job or something and getting ready to move out of the house. And somebody goes, what are you going to do with that Hemi? He's like, oh, nobody wanted it as far as he knew. He put an ad in the Trading Times, which was the local newspaper, for engine parts, and he knew what year it was. They had deconstructed the date code on the on the engine stamping, and he just said, whatever your Hemi, $50. And some guy showed up so fast with $50, have no idea what became of that engine. It could still be out there for all we know. Arts 4014 suggests that this could in fact be Hemi Orange. Hemi Orange. It's a possibility. Blah, blah, blah. I've been in many dirt tracks. The only person wearing earmuffs was me. Yeah, I wear earplugs when I run lawn equipment. I've got a weed whacker, a brush cutter, and a couple of chainsaws that put up quite a noise. And I do I like to block that out. Did somebody ask why they call it a Hemi? Yeah, hemispherical head, referring to the head shape of the combustion chambers. Self deuces any intact early Hemi is worth quite a bit. I've seen 331s going for over 5 grand. This was about 19. Carry the one. Mid 70s, early 70s. Quite a while. Quite a while. Grande Taco can't be a deaf lawyer. I actually know a blind lawyer, and I've been in front of blind judges before too. In fact, one of the blind judges I was in front of was one of the best judges I ever saw. Very, very good. John Zabel Max Super 1010. My stuff is all steel, so it runs smooth. Jupe Turwin, earplugs, smart. I have tinnitus after not being smart. Is it Jupe Turwin or Yoop Turwin? Please let me know. I'll try to pronounce that correctly. I understand that sometimes Europeans' languages actually pronounce the J the way we pronounce a Y. Vic G, NASCAR Michigan race today. At MIS, NASCAR sure lost focus on stock cars. Yeah. I really, even if it's on, I'll skip past it. I think I'd rather watch a rerun of Big Bang Theory. Doctors Wacken. Oh, G's or Q's? Q's? Doctors Watkins checking in. Last time I drank out of a plastic cup like that, they were serving brown jungle juice infused with medical fungi. medical fungi. Are you sure there's more than one? Medical fungi? Sub GR, does Michigan have a blind Supreme Court justice? Yes. And I said I've been before a blind judge who is good. Hope with a J. So Jope Turwin? Is that right? Jope? Or Hope? Hope Turwin. When you say with a J, do you want me to pronounce a J or not? I'm not asking about how to pronounce the vowels, just the J. Or is it pronounced Hope Turwin? Let me know. Oh, Mindbend asks about where are the regulars. CRL's not in because she works on Sundays quite often. But I did chat with Johnny Knoxville this morning. He was checking out a pizza place like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock this morning. And I'm like, let me know how it is. It was very good, but he said it did not beat the Buddies pizza that he and I had a couple years ago. Arts 4014, if you listen closely, you can hear Nissan's rust. In Michigan, you can hear everything rust, even fiberglass bodies. Scooters Pops, are you saying you've been in front of Supreme Court Judge Bernstein? No, I have not. But I was in front of one Michigan judge who's blind, and he's very, very good. So, Jope Turwin, use the J instead of the H. Jope. So, in other words, the O is what we call a long O in English. Jope Turwin. And I'm assuming it's Turwin, or is it Turwine or Turween? Way too much thought going into this, but I apologize. I'm fascinated by language. I really am. I only speak one, but is Jerry Dodge getting an engine noise? Johnny Z. Fradley's Z-Bart rust proofing was popular in Ohio. It's us or rust. Was that Z-Bart? Yeah. Uh-huh. Joe Turwin, with our climate, the cars are rusting at the dealership. That happens in some places in America too. Daniel Kester is here and he points out that he is, in fact, a regular. I do believe I consider him a regular. Thank you very much. Yeah, mine, Ben, Michigan uses a little salt in the roads, and a little, like he says, is about as much as Mount Everest in volume. Mexican spec, a regular what? There is a song called Here Comes a Regular. Great song. So, Silent H. Angus. Meanwhile, Steve calling me Silent Hangus when it's Silent H. Angus. So, where is the silent H? I was trying to be ironic. I assume that you put that there for a reason. Or do you spell Angus with an H and you don't pronounce it? Yeah, Terry Room and the Mats, the replacements. If you haven't, and if you're a fan of them, uh, read the book Trouble Boys. Trouble Boys. I'm telling you right now, it's one of the best books I've read in the last 20 years. It's a biography of that band, and it's well written, it's well researched, it's definitive, and those guys, the more you study them, the more confounding they are, and their music is so good. GPS, I knew a guy named Henry spelled Hen3RY, but the three was silent. That's good. Lewis Browning says that the Z-Bart tagline, It's Us or Rust, was said by Rod Sterling back in 1974. Julian Shaban, I guess I'm a regular too. You are. Thank you for checking in. Silent H. Angus is named Zach. Terry Ruman, go to Bob's bench frequently. Hello, a guitar player. Jupe sounds like Jope. Yeah, we got that. Terwin is like tear and Terra, and drink wine. Tear wine. Jope, tear wine. I will never remember that. I'm just I apologize right now. I'm so glad you're here. If you were here, I'd shake your hand. And but I just I appreciate the fact that you've let me mispronounce your name hundreds of times in the past, but I probably won't remember. But I'll try to remember Hope, Terra, Wine. Someone else remind me. Someone else write that down. There's a question about thermal pollution. I have no idea what you guys are talking about, other than it's going to depend on whether or not there are laws locally, and presumably also, like, I don't know, building codes and stuff. And I don't know that stuff. Yeah, Rod Serling. I think I mispronounced because somebody wrote Sterling. I'm looking at the. I think it's Rod Serling, but that's okay. It's a common one. Fatima Butterpants says he's got to go, but he did laugh and he did learn. So there you go. Mexican Specs, you'll be thinking about Hope Terwine all week. Be honest. I probably will, but I'll be practicing that. The next week he's going to go, I'm just kidding. That's not how you pronounce it. Doug Jones, you're still running marathons. No. Haven't run a full marathon in 2 or 3 years. I've run a couple of half marathons, which are a totally different thing. I might run the Free Press half marathon this year, but that's in October. I got plenty of time to start training. And yes, I'd have to start training. My brother and I both signed up for it as like a New Year's resolution kind of thing. I saw him last week. I go, how's that training going? He hasn't started yet. And I go, neither have I. He's okay, we're even. Bob Kerflugen says, hey, at least you get my name right every time. Tim Nossum, could a dealer charge you under warranty to deal with Z-Bart's undercoating? Well, Z-Bart's undercoating, if they're doing what I think they're doing, that's something being done other than the manufacturer or a dealer or a manufacturer's representative. So anything they do that messes with the car, the manufacturer will, guess what? That's not on us. And go look in your owner's manual. It says specifically in there that the warranty does not cover harm done to it by other people or you. So Mind Ben says you mispronounce my name all the time. Redfish, if I'm running, something is chasing me. Swamp rat, my name is unpronounceable in your language. In English? Is swamp rat your name? Or like, is that like Swedish? Swamp rat. I mean, what? Or, oh, you can start the half. Who says you have to finish? Now you have to because that's where your car is parked. unless unless you actually run straight to your car. Prodigal Stranger says, I've never seen this before, but my manager's going to knock $100 off that zebra under. Well, you're going to really want that True Coat, though. No, 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 no. I'm doing you a favor. You hold on a second. You're going to want the True Coat. Ask anybody here. The true. I'm protecting you. You want the True Coat. Blah 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 with a rhino lining in a pickup truck void warranty. You mean a spray on? It would void warranties that have to do with the spray on. I mean, obviously, if you had the rhino lining installed and they sprayed it in, and then your car developed an engine knock, I doubt they're related. They got to show some kind of relationship, I would think. Yeah, Image Doc Ray, you used to mispronounce mine all the time because that very well could be Image Docray, and you pointed out that you're an image doc. You do you look at the films, right? Rum123. There's an Easter egg in my YouTube handle. Image Doc Race is $100 off that True Coat. See, here's the deal. We'll knock $100 off the True Coat, but you want the True Coat. I actually knew somebody who ordered something, a car, went to pick it up, and the sales lady actually said, I know you said you didn't want the rust proofing, but they rust proofed your car. And so you got to pay for it. My friend told me that happened. I'm like, what? Why would you pay for it? And she goes, "Well, they told me I had to." I'm like, "Oh, that was a few years ago. I wasn't an attorney yet." Tark, good morning, Steve. Hope you and yours are well. Good morning. Okay. Good to you. Good morning to you too as well. Mexican spec True Coat costs more than $100. It costs whatever the salesman thinks he can squeeze out of a customer. That's the whole point. Robert Lee AMC had Z-Bart from the factory in all its cars. Did they really? Like they cut a deal with Z-Bart? Earl Scheib paint jobs. Johnny Z. Bradley. Yeah, 116-3562. That's a scene from Fargo. That's one of the running jokes. Is there's a poor young couple trying to buy a car, and that salesman will not let them buy the car until they agree to the True Coat. And no, we don't want the True Coat. Yes, you do. It's for your own good. Jason Brindamore. Do I say something to say Brindamore? Mine is pronounced Brindamore. Brindamore. Jason Brindamore. Okay. Jerry Dodge used to look like Alice Cooper, but then he got his hair cut. No, Mexican Spec says that Jason Brindamore corrected me. He actually didn't. That was a nice way of politely pointing it out. Brindamore. Brindamore. Bob Loblaw says, I'm never quite sure you're pronouncing my name correctly. I'm reasonably certain I am. And by the way, I read your comments in your voice. I hear your voice when I read your comments. Earl Scheib TV ads from the 60s, $29.95 at an Earl Scheib shop, a paint job for $29.95. Richard. Now, I remember I knew a guy who actually got a car painted at Earl Scheib in like 1978 or 79. It didn't look bad from 50 feet away, but he also removed everything from it and then drove it there. So they didn't have to mask off the chrome. He put the chrome stuff back on. But it was an orange. When he's done, it was an orange Chevelle. Robert Combs, did you research for Defender arcade game? Not in the last week, but I have recently. The one thing if somebody says, Steve, I've got one that will pause. It has a pause button, but everything else is identical to the arcade game. I'd buy it in an instant. But the problem is, I know darn well if I got a game going and I got bored or I had to make a phone call or something, especially if I was using it during working hours, I'd hate to walk away from a game where I had like 5 million points, you know? Opinion Rat says my name is pronounced Option Rat. Dr. Rick's going in for a PET scan tomorrow. Good luck, my friend. Hopefully they find or don't find whatever it is you're looking for or not looking for. Oh boy. Joe Terwine says I used a paint roller on one of my cars. Canadian Robot Lady actually used a paint roller on her car also, and I believe she filmed it. I believe there's a video of her doing it someplace on the internet, on YouTube. Dan Boyd pulled all of the chrome off my old 68 Cougar before sending it to Mako. Very satisfying to reassemble it all. Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing kids painting cars badly in the 70s. And I mean, it's when you realize how inexpensive some of the stuff is, like, to get yourself a good DeVilbiss gun and a compressor. I don't know if DeVilbiss still exists or not. And I mean, my brother painted cars in our garage. He painted my 69 Dodge Charger. It looked great. But the problem, of course, is that if you don't know what you're doing, you can screw stuff up really badly. And also, I remember seeing cars coming in to get gas at the gas station, and there's overspray on chrome or on glass. It's like, oh my God. It's the old measure twice, cut once, but mask twice and spray once, figuratively speaking. Dan Boyd, I painted a car with a roller and it looked good after a rough wet sand and buff. Old paint. The dealer repainted my sister's 92 Camaro 3 or 4 times under warranty. We had it done by Earl Shop for $329 and it lasted longer. And that's in the 90s. Wow. Yeah, Sam as I am says Mako started in the 70s to compete with Earl Scheib. They were just as bad. Oh boy. Vinny Sluga's got a play tomorrow night at the Metropolis Performing Arts Center. Are you in the play or are you watching the play? Or did you perhaps draft the play itself? Tim Nossum says he just learned that it's pronounced Devilbus, not Devil Bliss. I could be wrong, but I know guys who use the guns, they call them Devilbus, referring to a spray gun that runs off of compressed air and throws paint onto things. And you got to remember, we're talking about painting cars. If you do it right, you put the primer on, you do the body work, sand it all down, get it perfect. Put the primer on, double check things. You may do some more sanding, more primer possibly, and then you put the paint down. And there's an art to putting the paint on properly. And then when you're done painting it, then you got to wet sand it and polish it. And there's so many steps in there, and it takes a really, really trained eye to look over a curved surface and see that the curve is correct. And then if you're going to use some kind of body filler or something, I can still, when I hear the word Bondo, it hurts my nose because I can still imagine how it felt when I heard, when I smelled Bondo. My brother was out Bondoing cars, not putting a lot of Bondo, but once in a while. Vinny Sluga is, in fact, the director, assistant director of the play. Okay. Oh. Rum123 says we had a guy named Bill McConnell here. He made bodies beautiful with about 3 gals saying, "That's right, Bill," in the commercial. But was he referring to automotive bodies, or is he talking about like plastic surgery? Blah blah blah. Fish eyes, orange peel, and runs. Yeah. And again, it's I've watched guys paint cars, both my brother and other people, and I've seen people putting down a beautiful coat. And the trick is, of course, you're trying to keep the thing like this. So you're moving your arm like this, to keep the paint and the surface, perfectly like that. And just a fraction too much, and you got to run. It's like, okay, it's gonna take a while to sand that out. Buff baby, John Zablock. Dan Boyd, some painters are good enough to walk away from it wet and never touch the paint again. Don't they still need to actually polish it or something though? MH08 Bondo mobiles. We call them Bondo buggies. Bondo buggies. Dan Boyd, that 68 Cougar was built out of Bondo. I remember watching guys working with Bondo who didn't know what they're doing, and you'd mix a batch and you mix it wrong, and while they're stirring it, it locks up solid on them. So then they correct the other way and they make the stuff that never gets hard. Image Doc races DeVilbiss also makes virtually all of the home oxygen concentrators that medical patients use worldwide. That's cool. Vilefly, I hope the guy who still builds the Batmobiles is doing okay. Mark Rakeup of Fiberglass Freaks. I've got that really cool shirt that I got from him that has the outline of the Batmobile on the front in neon. So cool. Haven't talked to him in a while, but that's Mark Rakeup of Fiberglass Freaks. What a great guy. William Harol says rather have a run instead of a dry spot in the paint. Well, yeah, obviously. You can sand the run down, but you have to apply more paint otherwise. Chris Badesa, for decades, there was a spot of Bondo on our driveway long after the car was gone. I visited my father recently, and I was in the garage, and I looked up on the wall, and my brother had painted his initials. This is my brother Dave, who passed away a little over a year ago. Painted his initials. Next to it wrote 1978. 1978. And that's when he was in the garage painting cars. Still there. Self-do says also learn to do touch-ups because chips, dings, and scratches are inevitable. The first one's always a heartbreak. Yeah, and I've seen on cars where just a rock puts a little chip in the paint, and you can get touch-up tubes that are the right color. And there's a science to it, but I got good at it. I've done a lot of touch-up on cars. And obviously you walk right up and you look at it, or you're like this close, you can see where the touch-up was. 5, 10 feet back, you wouldn't even notice it. Silent H. Angus, my daughter's golden birthday is tomorrow. Which one's the golden birthday? John Michael Karma, I borrowed my brother's medical air concentrator and painted my car. Oh, Johnny Z says that'd be the 50th. The 50th. Oh, no, she's 8 on the 8th. Okay, that makes sense. Bob blah blah. My sister painted a racing stripe with fingernail polish in 1972. Pinstriping, sure. Vinny Slugas is the play is called Clear Book on Cue. I'm not familiar with it. Carl's Corner by Steve Good show as always. Hey, we got 3 more minutes. What are you doing? Bailing early. Just kidding. I really am blown away that anybody wants to hang out on a Sunday afternoon. Beautiful day outside. You can see behind me, right? Well, kind of. Believe me, that burnout right there is from bright sunlight. And sit here and chat for a couple hours. So I appreciate that. It's always fun. Swamp Rat. My niece just turned 43. Damn, I'm old. My niece has got a 10-year-old kid. So might not be as old as your niece, but yeah, there you go. Lewis Browning, did you get the pirate book? Yes, I did. I did. I have not read it yet. I got the book. It's in my to-read pile. But thank you. Got another t-shirt today, too. That's cool. Redfish 440 is pouring rain here today. K Mill Media, oh sweet, caught you live. Thanks for checking in there. We do have about 1 more minute left. But hey, as long as you're here, it counts, right? Bob Kerflugen stays up an hour past his bedtime for this stream. Jerry Dodge needs to graduate college, starting more college at Western Michigan. Is it WMU? Very cool. Dave O'Do, it is fun to listen to you having fun. Thank you. Mexican Spec, my niece would have been 45 in 2 months. Prodigal Stranger, are the Wing Car books still available? I will have more in the near future. Don't have any right now. So I don't want to take orders, so I've actually got them in hand. But there you go. Lewis Browning, we want a book report. I will do a book report on that book and all the others I've read, like about 3 or 4 recently. As soon as I'm done with that book, probably I'll do another book report on my backup channel. Thank you very much. So, Prodigal Stranger says, you've been watching Lehto's live. See you later. My big clock still says 2:59:30, so I'm holding out till 3. Tim Noss, how many minutes are remaining in the period? I once had a professor walk into class late, and somebody jokingly said class starts at 9, and he looked up, pulled up a chair, reached up, and went, eek, pushed the hand of the clock back, got back down. Any questions? Oh, there you go. That's going to wrap it for you. I will see you next time. As always, videos, et cetera, et cetera. Behave yourself. Bye-bye.